Imagine walking down your street and seeing neighbors suddenly collapse where they stand. A teacher mid-lesson, out cold at the blackboard. A farmer asleep on his tractor, engine still running. Children in class, slumped over desks, eyes closed, breathing deep, unreachable. And when they wake, it isn't after a nap, it's after days. This isn't a horror story or science fiction. It's the very real mystery of Kalachi, Kazakhstan, known worldwide as the village that falls asleep. Kalachi lies in northern Kazakhstan, a country of vast steppe and bitter winters. The village is tiny, just a few hundred residents, most descended from miners and farmers who stayed when Soviet industries collapsed. For years, life here was simple and quiet. Harsh, yes, but ordinary. Until the year 2012. That's when the first unexplained cases appeared. A man was walking home from work when he collapsed in the snow. Hours later, he woke up in a hospital, confused, unable to recall what had happened. Days later, it happened again, this time to his neighbor, and then to a child in school. Soon, the sickness spread like a shadow across the town. People would simply shut down, eyes fluttering, bodies limp, as if someone had flipped a switch. They would sleep for hours, sometimes for 2 or 3 days. Nothing could wake them. When they finally stirred, they were dizzy, nauseous, often unable to remember entire stretches of their lives. By 2013, the phenomenon was impossible to ignore. Out of a population of just 600, more than 150 people had been affected. That meant 1 in every 4 villagers had collapsed at some point, struck by what the press soon called the sleeping sickness of Kalachi. Doctors rushed in. Scientists from Astana, even teams backed by the military, descended on the village with equipment. They checked the soil, the water, the food supply, the air. Everything seemed normal. But eyewitness accounts painted a chilling picture. Children collapsing mid-lesson. Women falling unconscious while hanging laundry. Men in the middle of a conversation suddenly dropping into a coma-like slumber. Some villagers spoke of hallucinations. One boy said he awoke to see horses galloping through his room. Another described snakes crawling across the walls. These visions lingered in their minds long after the sleep passed. And it wasn't just sleep. Some victims woke with partial paralysis. Some trembled with shakes like Parkinson's disease. Others struggled to find words as though their minds had been fogged. Soon, suspicion turned to Kalachi's history. Just a few miles away lies the ghost town of Krasnogorsk, once a thriving Soviet uranium mining settlement. During the Cold War, uranium ore was hauled from beneath the steppe here, feeding the Soviet nuclear machine. When the mines closed in the 1990s, they were abandoned. Tunnels left to collapse, shafts left to flood. What gases or residues remained underground? No one could say. In 2015, the Kazakh government announced its leading theory. Toxic gases from the mines, carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons, were seeping into the village. The gas levels, they said, were high enough to reduce oxygen in the blood, pushing villagers into sudden unconsciousness. It sounded like an answer. But it didn't fully fit. Not everyone exposed collapsed. Some entire families were struck at once, others not at all. Gas readings fluctuated wildly. Scientists debated whether the concentrations were ever high enough to explain days-long sleep. So other theories emerged. Some pointed to radiation. After all, these were uranium mines. Could leftover radioactive dust have poisoned the soil and air? Official measurements said radiation was within safe limits, but locals doubted. The Soviet Union was not known for transparency. What if the truth had been buried along with the ore? Others suggested a viral outbreak or neurological disorder. Doctors tested for everything: infections, parasites, brain scans. Nothing consistent explained it. Still, years later, some victims developed tremors and cognitive decline, hinting at permanent brain damage. Was it all coincidence or the lingering effect of whatever struck them? Then came the theories from the villagers themselves. They spoke of curses, of ancestral spirits disturbed by the digging of uranium mines. Some whispered of Soviet experiments, secret chemicals tested in isolated places, long forgotten but still active in the soil. By now, Kalachi was famous worldwide. Reporters called it Sleepy Hollow of the Steppe. Scientists flew in from Europe, Japan, the United States. But still, the mystery deepened. Imagine being one of those residents. At any moment, you could collapse, while cooking, driving, even carrying your child. You might sleep through days of your life, waking with no memory of what had passed. The government decided drastic action was needed. By 2015, relocation began. Families were moved to safer towns. Entire streets were left abandoned. For those who left, it was a bitter choice, to lose their home or to risk losing themselves. Yet some refused. Elderly residents clung to the land, saying, "This is where we were born. If we must sleep, we will sleep here." Even today, Kalachi is scarred. More than 150 cases were recorded, but the true number may be higher. Some cases continued even after evacuations. The sickness slowed, but whispers of new collapses still surface. The village's name is forever tied to its curse, the place where people fall asleep. So what really happened? The official story says toxic gases, but critics point out gases should affect everyone equally. Why only some? Why children and entire families? Why sudden waves, then silence? The radiation theory remains popular in whispers, but evidence is thin. The curse theory is alive too, because sometimes when science cannot explain, stories must. Perhaps the truth is a mix: hidden gases, old radiation, fragile genetics, stress. Or perhaps the truth is still buried, waiting for someone brave enough to dig it up. Kalachi raises bigger questions. How do we live when science has no answers? How fragile is our daily routine if even sleep, something meant to heal us, can turn into a threat? For some, Kalachi is a warning of what happens when we ignore environmental scars left by industry. For others, it is proof that the Earth itself can rebel. And for a few, it is simply a mystery that will never be solved. An unsolved chapter in the endless book of human strangeness. So I'll leave you here with the door wide open. Would you spend a night in Kalachi, knowing you might not wake for days? Would you risk the dream of the town that never wakes? Subscribe to DarkCurio for more forbidden places and chilling mysteries. And tell me in the comments, what do you think truly put an entire village to sleep?